Alright, we had a couple of anime games in a row, so now, let's see. It's time for a build game again. The endless cycle continues. So far we build on different planets, a lawsuit-prone theme park. We build in the sky, in the snow, and now we will be building in the sea with Bulwark. I do say now, but in reality this is already the second time I'm doing a review on Bulwark. As the first version was done, but then Bulwark decided to get a major update, so I decided to pull my review and redo it completely once the update was released. Now, Bulwark promises somewhat of a standard premise for a build game, but one quick view at the Steam page will suggest it does something more, or at least different than be a standard premise for a build game. And that is what ticked the right boxes for me to be interested. Also, I just have a soft spot for passionate indie devs, which is definitely the case here. And hey, he's a fellow Dutchman, so that must be a recipe for success, right? Or not, I hope at least, or well, let's just find out, shall we? This is Bulwark. After a 40-year war, the people of Earthsea are left in a dire state. Remnants of 4 factions remain and try to survive in this unforgiving landscape. And that is where you come in. It's your task to explore, rebuild, forge alliances, and conquer threats. Again, that's the standardized, or let's say traditional premise for a build game that Bulwark has. However, it sets itself apart right after the opening. Untraditionally, this game is played with a controller, and building itself is very hands-off. After you place your outpost, all you do is place roads or platform spaces for buildings to be placed on. The buildings themselves will be placed over time, and you don't really have a saying in what or where they will be beyond the platforms. Building these roads and spaces can be done very limitless, which is good as we are working with a very rough landscape of small islands, cliff sides, and shallow waters. This mix of limitless placing and RNG spawning of buildings gives your cities a great natural feeling of development. And thanks to the art style used in the game, the most simplistic places will slowly grow into cool looking unique places. I in particularly love the Hive City vibe some of my larger cities would get. But I also created a soft spot for just simple fishing villages I could create along the way. When building, it feels like you're handing the game a drawing with just the lines and ask it to color it in with RNG. Now normally I'm not the biggest fan of RNG, as usually mine sucks, but I absolutely loved how every settlement grew into its own thing over time. Each place looked unique despite using similar build blocks. Now as you progress, you can upgrade your settlements even further with stone roads, larger platforms, and eventually spires. Now, if there's one thing about Bulwark that sticks out like a sore thumb, be that in the trailers or on the store page, it are these large spires that are towering above everything, with cool statues on top and such, and are connected by all these bridges, creating a large web over the city itself. Case in point, spires are cool, and constructing these in Bulwark is a very awesome but simple thing to do. Once you decided to take a tower to the sky, you have a lot of choices to make. What kind of base are you going to give it? Will it have arched platforms or just a solid one? Where or how many buildings will you be placing on the sides of it? Will it have on higher levels also platforms, and so on? At first, your spires with the chosen additions look very bare, boring, but as time progresses, just like with everything else in your settlements, buildings will be placed on these open spaces, making them unique from one another and slowly melt into its surroundings. However, these spires and towers in your cities are there for a purpose. They need to protect your cities from threats as well. And if you feel like adding more special defenses to it, you can assign a commander to it, which, based on its faction, adds an amazing unique touch to one of your spires as well. And what is better than one spire? Multiple ones, of course, and that is where the limitless feeling of Bulwark truly takes shape. If you want, you can make a jungle of spires, or build them on the highest peaks you can find. The sky is literally the limit. And it's just so cool, and it doesn't end there either. Expanding your empire and creating new settlements is heavily encouraged, and that is the perfect time to test things out or try different things to see how far you can push your own creativity in this game. On that end, you are in full control. You just let the game take care of everything else. It's really that simple to build something this cool and amazing. And this simplicity is to be found everywhere in the game, be that trading, politics, resource management, and so on. Trading is just plopping down 2 harbors and assign a captain, fulfill the requirement and done. Resources are now supplied to the designated settlement and you can continue building. Politics, just look at the bar in the top right corner, and to improve one of your standings with a certain faction, invest in building, trading, or accepting their requests in events. And if that's not simple enough for you, just conquer the living hell out of them, as combat is literally just moving around a bit and waiting till your units took care of the enemy. Resource management is maybe the most thought-intensive element besides setting up your settlements in the entire game. To build and upgrade your settlements, you need certain resources. And to get those is very simplified, of course. For each resource you do get an extractor, and once placed, each extractor displays a number. Now, this number does not indicate the amount of resources produced each tick or in every minute or so, but the distance it can travel in your settlement. Each tower you place counts as a step, so to say. In other words, the higher the production, the more steps a resource makes through your settlement. To increase the output, you gotta place enough roads and platforms around the extractor to spawn additional resource gathering buildings. And that is really the only thing to keep in mind when it comes to resource management. There's also no maintenance cost to keep in mind when playing this game. Resources are only required for building itself. In other words, once you're done building, you can easily stop all the transport routes to one settlement and just go to the next. This removes a tactical aspect of management, as once you have set up your extractor well enough, they can provide each settlement you build with everything that is required in a blink of an eye. So yeah, while it's one of the most intensive aspects, it's still not that intensive. Now, the way that the game takes care of so many things and gives you such simplistic yet broad freedom is a pretty cool idea. You get so much creative control and offered so many possibilities without the usual stressfulness that normally comes with build or management games. However, this design is a double-edged sword, and Steam reviews to a degree reflect the problem that comes with a design choice like this. Because while Bulwark's strongest aspect is this very laid back and relaxing attitude, it also means it's voided from any challenges. Overall in Bulwark, you just don't need to care about anything. You don't need to care when placing down outposts, roads, platforms, or anything really. You can make it a big mess of a cluster with no clipping buildings and platforms, and the game will still reward you, and in some cases make it even look great. But then again, you don't have to care or give it any thought per se. Same goes for making allies or enemies. They don't feel like a threat that you need to form allies with or protect yourself from. Combat is something you don't have any impact on, and in late game you and your fleet are strong enough to kill most things without any problem. Transport routes can be attacked by pirates, which can be annoying, as you have to travel to the spot, wait around for units to shoot down the enemy, or alternatively you just accept that your trade route will be disrupted for a moment and have to re-establish it at some point later. Which are just mild annoyances, but not a challenge you have to face. Because keep in mind, resources are only required when building, not to maintain your settlements. Something that might be a challenge to you is learning and getting used to the controls, as they can be a bit tricky. Especially when you are in a settlement. You have to move along the roads you build and can't really look around with a free camera.
But the biggest challenge in Bulwark is not the controls or trying to care how or what you do with buildings and your settlements. No, it's not running out of steam that is the biggest challenge here, as when that happens, a real issue starts to appear. To get more outposts or extractors, you gotta find them in randomly generated events that appear on the map. Now, they appear very regularly, which can feel a little bit like a grind, as you constantly have to travel to them. And then most of the time it feels like it was not worth your time, as usually the things these events offer is not what you are looking for. Usually it are characters that want to join your fleet, and when it are outposts, it's random which of the 4 factions you get. And only in rare cases you get commanders, extractors, or something that really helps you move things along with ideas you have for the settlements. This grind of events weirdly pulls the brakes on an experience that is somewhat already standing still. Now, as I stated before, extractors and such don't really matter. You only need one to really get anything done. But I wanted to make a mine colony with a certain faction, almost role-playing that my settlement needed resources to survive. And before the update, this was a huge problem, as because of bad RNG, my entire experience was brought to a standstill because I couldn't find a single extractor. Now, thankfully this issue is somewhat solved in the newest update. In it, Bulwark gained a deeper economy system, which basically means you get money from beating pirates and trading, which in turn means you can buy new extractors whenever you have enough saved up. I will say that this introduced a new issue, as the prices of these extractors are high and creates a whole different new grind that you have to do before it's possible to buy any of them. Now, there is one other option, that option being conquest of the other factions. They also have extractors and such you can take over, but I think that kicking them all off the map by conquest hurts my experience more, as then it feels like you are, ironically, even more alone on an island. And I didn't want that either. I wanted my settlements to live next to others that were beyond my control, creating bonds, economies and such to make it feel like we're all working together to survive. But again, those things didn't really matter or were created by Bulwark. This sort of roleplay, this fantasy that I created was self-created from a wish, not because of Bulwark's design. Which is actually fine if you ask me, but more importantly, it led me to a question that I asked myself a lot when playing Bulwark and reviewing it. Cause I really wanted Bulwark to do and be more, be an exciting build and management game with a lot of depth. I mean, it nailed the looks, now it needs the mechanics to give them more weight. But every time I thought of ways Bulwark could be more, I asked, does it need to be more? Yes, updates show there is still room for improvement, which is welcomed and great, but the improvements I conjured up in my mind were usually against the design choice of Bulwark. It's designed to be so simplistic, laid back, yet great looking build game at the same time. It reminded me a lot of Airborne Kingdom's attitude, which is very similar. There, I also struggled with the same question, but Bulwark truly doubled down on that further. As a game, Bulwark will do nothing for you unless you want it to do something, and to that degree, it's actually great. After a long day, you want to just relax, build something cool looking, and go offline again. And for that, Bulwark is great. Just like the game, you will lay back and just tune out your mind as you go about building your settlements, which can be vast, filled with spires or just a mess of no-clipping buildings. It doesn't matter on that end. You have full creative control and freedom. It's up to you how and why you enjoy the slow development of the places you create. And heck, even on a normal day, I didn't mind spending a whole day like that either. Playing a full 10 hours of it was just a lot of fun and relaxing. And to me, that is what Bulwark sets out to do, what it wants to achieve. To relax, forget about everything and just drift away. For that purpose, Bulwark is an absolute great game. And on that basis, I would recommend Bulwark. It's for people that are searching for that kind of experience. If you look for challenging deep management and building systems to break your brain over, then Bulwark is not for you, as it wants the opposite types of players, and for those it's fantastic. And if you are unsure if you are one of those players, then good news, it has a demo. So if you're intrigued with what you saw and heard here, but aren't sure if a game like this is for you, be sure to check that out.